We are here with Nikachu once again, and you have requested it, so we have brought it back, this time with the least amount of text in all of Yu-Gi-Oh! There's a couple different monsters, and they have really small amount of text, and also the text is really small. And then we have some spells that have a very short amount of text. So if you haven't checked out the video that has you, Nikachu, doing the longest cards in Yu-Gi-Oh! Go ahead and check that out. But here we have the shortest ones, and I'm going to do a little bit of a wrinkle this time. Are you ready for the wrinkle? I have not told you yet.
Well, you know, big things come in small packages. So let's hear this this wrinkle in the small text category of Yu-Gi-Oh!
The wrinkle is, you're not going to tell me whether a card is good or bad, or slash tier 1, tier 0, you know, tier -1, okay? You're going to tell me if the card has always been bad, if the card has been really good in the past but is no longer good, or is currently really good.
Well, that's going to be really hard to do because I've never played Yu-Gi-Oh! So I have to decipher, wow, at what point did this thing get power crept, or is it still power crept or not? All right, let's take on these tiny texted cards.
Listen, you've already done this like 3 or 4 times. We have to make it harder and harder as each time goes on, okay?
Yeah, that's right. We gotta eventually, you gotta break me. I don't know, those pendulum cards already broke me.
Yeah, you've already been broken. That's time to unbreak you with these cards, starting with
the Barrier Statue of the Stormwinds for 4 Dragon Balls. This is a winged beast effect. Neither player can special summon monsters except wind monsters. Also has an attack of 1,000 and a defense of 1,000. Neither player can special summon monsters except the wind monsters. That sounds great! Because like special summoning is important. That's how you get your like bigger creature, your bigger monsters out, right? And I'm assuming the wind monsters, if you build your deck for the wind monsters, then this thing is going to be unstoppable. I have a feeling wind monsters are not very good though. I've never heard of a wind monster. I've never even seen a wind monster in the anime. Everything's on the ground or underwater or something like that. Would this have been good at any point in time? I want to say, like, it sounds like if you can't special summon monsters, you're just going to be playing with crap the entire time. So if you can build I'm assuming that they're at one point in one moment of Yu-Gi-Oh's history, there might have been at least a few good wind monsters. So I'm going to say this card used to be good, but is unplayable garbage today.
Boy, do I have some news for you. This card is banned.
Oh, God! There are good wind monsters even by today's standards?
Yes.
Oh my God.
Yes.
Well, I knew it was good at least at one point in time. I got that. I got that half
right. That one
right.
point in time is right now. And, you know, the last year or two.
Well, then it's still good.
It is still
good.
This
is not even an old card.
Well, it's still good.
So, yeah, I guess I wasn't that wrong. Whenever it came out in standard, it was a good card.
Well, when it came out, it was terrible.
I guess I have to figure out how old is this card.
Very.
So it's very new.
It's really old.
Oh, okay.
Yeah.
You know, I got the impression that these were you know, from 1996 or something like that.
Yeah, give or take. Oh, no, this card's really old, and it became...
Oh, really? Okay.
Yeah, it became good because there was a deck that only relied on normal summoning called Fluunderies, and you normal summon, and that adds a creature that you normal summon, and then that adds another creature that you normal summon, and then that adds a creature, and then you just normal summon this afterwards. Your whole deck normal summons. So, your opponent's deck's probably not playing the same deck as you, because that's like the only really good wind deck with the wind monsters. So... There's give or take some other wind cards like Baron de Fleur, which is like a really good wind monster that like almost every deck plays. But you can't really get to that monster without summoning other non-wind card first. So you can never get to the game plan.
So what happens when you go into a wind mirror?
Oh, then this card's
How good
trash.
Is that card there?
This card's awful.
Yeah.
But this card was pretty oppressive in the Fluunderies deck, so they banned this card. Instead of banning like something in the Fluunderies deck, they chose to ban this because it was the most oppressive card possible. They would do their whole game plan like nothing ever happened, and then you just can't play the game.
Well, you can play your regular summoned stuff, but you know usually it's not very exciting.
Yeah, normally you would be able to normal summon a monster that's bigger than 1,000 and be able to, attack over this thing before you start your play, which that was a strategy that you would do against this card. The problem is that Floowanderee's deck capitalized off you normal summoning, and it has a couple cards in it that says if your opponent normal summons, you can normal summon. So then when you normal summon to try to beat this card, they normal summon out of their hand, and then they trigger all their stuff again, and then they normal summon on your own turn, and then they stop the monster that you just normal summoned to run over this. So then you can't run over this, and then you lose.
Yeah, it's like you're playing two cards. You're playing on my turn, and you're playing on your turn, and you're playing on your opponent's turn.
Yes, but the opponent can't really play because you have a barrier statue of the Stormwinds.
You got the barrier statue. That's right.
All right, so let's.
And you can play your wind creatures.
Yes, you can play your wind creatures, and wind creatures are good right now, but maybe in the past his card wasn't as good. Let's move on to the second card. Are you ready?
All right, I'm ready. I should just trust that if a card was good back then, it's probably good today.
Well, this card's the opposite. It was bad back then and good today.
Oh, so it became good.
Yes.
Oh, interesting. Old garbage cards that became busted.
Yeah.
We got the Darkhole. It's a spell card. Frankly, it costs nothing as far as I'm concerned. Destroy all monsters on the field. Oh, it's a Wrath of God. In that case, what does the symbol at the top right mean again?
That's just signifying that it's a spell card.
Destroy all monsters on the field. So I can just pay 0, blow everything up. That's what you're telling me. It's like the ultimate removal spell, but I could blow up the board and then just refill it with my own stuff afterwards. Yes. This has got to be good. At what point can this card be bad? I mean, of course you can't probably it's not good in every single deck, but I would assume this is just a universal sweeper. It's good back then, it's good today. I mean, there is one catch. Yu-Gi-Oh! Is known for being like a turn 1 or even turn 0 game in general. So if you don't even get a turn, then this card's completely useless. But assuming you do get a turn, you'll just wipe your opponent's entire field and then refill it with your own. So I'm going to assume this card was good in the past, whenever that was, and it's still good today.
You are correct.
Okay, good enough. You have to think about that one.
You're correct, but it's a little bit of a caveat.
Okay.
Darkhole is a good card, but it's like an average card right now, but you can't really say it's bad because Darkhole is just destroy all monsters on the field. But most decks can't play this card in the main deck. You would only sideboard this card for when you go second. So when you're going first, you just can't use this card, right? It used to be really, really good in the past to the point where it was banned, and then they put it to 1, and now it's at 3. It's unlimited, so you can just play as many copies as possible in your deck if you want to, because it's not that good and overpowered / oppressive. There's other better cards than this, believe it or not, to where if you go second, you activate this card and you can basically win the game. Like Dark Ruler No More basically turns off all the effects of your opponent's board, and they can't even respond to it. Darkhole they can respond to by just playing their counterspell on it, basically. But there's ones that your opponent literally can't even counter. Uncounterable, everything loses their abilities and stuff. So, anyway, Darkhole isn't the best thing you can be doing, but in some decks that capitalize off of their own cards being destroyed, like Baby Sarasaurus is a card in Yu-Gi-Oh! That it has an effect that when it's destroyed, it does something, like summon another dinosaur from your deck. Darkhole's a pretty good card, and you probably play that in that deck. But most decks don't really care about their own cards being destroyed.
If you asked me if this card was banned, I would have said no. That is ridiculous that this ever was a ban-worthy card. I totally agree. Yeah, sounds like a fine sideboard card when you're on the draw, so your opponent just spews their hand. Well, it's all gone. Say goodbye to everything. You overextended. Well, that's Yu-Gi-Oh, folks.
Yep.
And then you just go on and capitalize it. But can't even beat the Exodia deck. Yugi would just laugh at this damn thing.
Nice Darkhole. I have 5 pieces of Exodia in my hand.
Yeah, exactly.
That's funny. Oh my gosh. Let's go ahead and go to a similar card that also has very similar text on it.
Ooh, the Heavy Storm. It's also a spell card. Destroy all spell and trap cards on the field. spell and trap cards. The trap card does not sound nearly as exciting. The spell cards may be slightly more exciting. If I remember correctly, spell cards are its own card type. It's separate from monsters.
Right.
This looks really situational. Like the meta has to be in a spot where spell and traps are very, very strong. So this is definitely a card that looks like it has some sort of sideboard utility, but is not good in general. And I would say that this card probably was like good enough, playable at a time, but is just in general not good overall.
You are, how should I say this? Egregiously wrong.
Okay.
No, there's a lot of trap cards in the game that kind of say no to your opponent. Like, I have all of my trap cards are counter spells. So basically playing this Heavy Storm card is like saying that you destroy your opponent's counter spells, and usually the counter spells like, Solemn Strike that would negate a monster effect or negate a summon of a monster. A lot of those don't interact with spell cards very easily. Cards like Skill Drain or There Can Be Only One, they're basically designed to stop your opponent from playing the game. So when you're playing those decks that like to play the game, I mean, every deck likes to play the game, but there's also decks that don't want your opponent to play the game, like a control deck. This basically says no. It's kind of like a thought distortion in a way, but this can be countered. It's like a thought distortion that can be countered. So in that way, it's really, really good. It is currently banned.
Oh God.
Yeah.
But like it would not seem so crazy to me that you can like blow up people's trap cards. Like it seems like it's an answer to other people's spells. Like and traps.
It is an answer to
What's
other people's
wrong with
spells and
that?
traps, but it is a sorcery. So, but in Yu-Gi-Oh, your opponent has to set their cards usually before they play them, especially if they're trap cards.
Right.
So when they set them, they're vulnerable to being destroyed. So if you just use Heavy Storm, kill all of their spells and traps, and then kill them, that's the power of Heavy Storm.
I guess I have to see it in action. If you put all your traps down at once, you deserve to lose. Why do you overextend like that into Heavy Storm? You gotta like pace it out over several turns.
Yes, and that's how different formats of Yu-Gi-Oh used to be. Like Goat format, like a format back in the day, back in maybe the early 2000s. You used to pace out your spell and trap cards to be able to stop your opponent in a way when Heavy Storm was legal. So you would maybe play 2 spell and trap cards to entice your opponent to Heavy Storm you, but you don't care what those 2 spell and trap cards were. You'll play like one of the next cards we'll talk about instead, or you'll play one you don't care about. They Heavy Storm you, and then you set your good trap cards and spell cards. So you would kind of bait it out that way.
So it's complete. I understood it invertedly. It was like worse back then when when the game was slower, but now we're in spew your hand mode. Spew everything onto the battlefield. What do you call it? The field?
You can call it the field or the battlefield, whatever you want to call it.
Oh, I don't know what officially is called in Yu-Gi-Oh, but yeah, you spew your hand over on the board, and then boom, you get Heavy Stormed, and that's a heavy loss for all your cards.
A heavy loss. I see what you did there.
Yeah,
yes,
that's right.
Yes. Back in the day, it was a little bit worse, but it was still a really, really good card, and you can definitely get blown out by it if you don't play around it.
Graceful Charity. It's a spell card. Draw 3 cards, then discard 2 cards. This is absolutely broken. I mean, it's very, very similar to Magic the Gathering, where you're not even losing any cards. This is not even faithless looting. Faithless looting in Magic is you have to spend a card to draw 2, discard 2. I am spending a card to draw 3, discard 2. It is absolutely no loss to me whatsoever. This looks worse. No, I guess it's not worse than Pot of Greed. Pot of Greed is like draw 2, discard nothing. But like it's still like it's Pot of Greed's little brother or something, like little pot. Little kettle or
little
something. Like, and also if you can utilize the graveyard, then this would just in some ways be better than a Pot of Greed for that very specific deck. So I think I'm assuming it was broken back then, and it's still outright broken today, and I will say this card is outright banned.
This card's awful.
Really?
No, this card was banned before.
You really shocked me. Oh, My heart skipped a beat for a second.
This card was really good before.
Under what circumstances is this card bad?
I got you for real. No, but you were exactly right. This card was really good back then, and was limited to one back then, and then is banned now, and it's been banned for a very long time.
Yeah.
For the exact reasons that you said. It's obviously broken, right?
Yeah. Send it to the what do you call it here?
Shadow Realm?
Send it to the Shadow Realm. Send it to the Shadow Realm.
So that was so funny.
You can think about what it's done.
I got your heart to skip a beat. That's all I'm here for. We are going to the last card with the least amount of words that I have on this list. And it's funny because you said that this was kind of like a baby pot. So let's look at this one.
It's a jar. It's a jar of greed. And it's a trap card. You draw one card. Oh my god, this is hard to recognize. Hold on, okay, so how does this trap card work? So you set the trap down, and that means you can play it next turn?
Yep. Oh, you can play it on your opponent's turn. And your turn. You just have to set it first before you use it.
So like it's basically a delayed cycle for nothing.
Yeah.
Oh, this is hard to evaluate. So basically, if you have like, what's the limit in Yu-Gi-Oh? You 4 cards?
3 per card.
How many have one? Huh? Pardon me?
3 per card is the limit.
Oh, you have 3 per card. Okay. So if you have 3 of these in your deck, you basically thin your deck out by 3 cards to make it a little bit more consistent to hit all the other cards in your deck. The cost, though, is you don't get that card immediately. This is not a Street Wraith for this type of deck, or a Gitaxian Probe, which replaced itself immediately. So that is the cost, and it has absolutely no utility outside of that, well, at least not that I know of. Oh man, could you loop this card from your graveyard? I don't know. Draw 1 card. And in these days, like, okay, so you thin your deck, big deal. You have to waste 1 turn. Like if you had 3 of these in your hand, you set them all down as your trap cards. You'll draw your cards on your opponent's turn, but you're not going to make any great use of them until your next turn. And you might be stone cold lost by that point because your opponent has already built up a large board. It's tricky. There's 3 damn words on this card, and it's hard. It's actually really hard to evaluate.
That's why it's fun.
What are my 3 options here?
The 3 options.
The wrinkle.
Your 3 options is good right now, was good but no longer good, and never good.
Oh, good right now, or never good, or good in the past. Okay. I'm gonna say. This is like a card that if you play with it, you would know. You would see its power.
You would see the power.
You don't play with it. But if you don't play with the card, you have no idea how good or bad this stupid card is.
Correct.
I will say it's good now. I'll say it's good now.
Okay.
Very strong deck thinning card. Because it just thins your deck. So basically you have a 40 card deck, you play Jar of Greed, and you will thin your deck by 3 more cards, and I am certain that there's some way that you could at least loop your trap cards once they've been used to further utilize and like draw more cards out of your deck. I'm sure there's like a Snapcaster Mage of trap cards, if that means anything, or if you could recur the card from your graveyard back to your hand and replay it, it just drills and digs for more cards in general.
Let me give you a little bit of context on what you just said.
Okay.
1 second.
Give me context. Did I prophesize something?
Potentially. What you just said about looping trap cards, you've already given your answer, so I'm going to go off of what you said before.
Yeah.
But let me just show you this card really quick and show you that, and this is a meta deck right now. And this card, what do you think about this card in reference to Jar of Greed?
Lovely Labyrinth of the Silver Castle. It's got 8 shiny Dragon Balls. It's a fiend effect. Your opponents cannot activate monster effects in response to the activation of your normal trap cards. So your trap cards are actually protected. Hold on, monster effects in response to activation. Oh, no, wait a minute. No, you activate your trap cards, and then they can activate their monster effects. You can only use each of the following effects of Lovely Labyrinth of the Silver Castle once per turn. You can target One normal trap card in your graveyard, set it to your field, but it cannot be activated unless you control a fiend monster. If another monster leaves the battlefield by your normal trap effects, except during the damage step, you can destroy one card in your opponent's hand at random or their field. Well, this card, recurring the Jar of Greed. That sounds absolutely busted. On top of that, that's not even the only thing it does. It has 2 extra separate abilities attached to a 2,900 power attacker.
Yes. I tell you all that to say this. This Labyrinth deck does rely on having normal trap cards like Jar of Greed. But there are much, much better normal trap cards to be playing than a card that just says draw a card. So, Jar of Greed is not playable right now at all.
Oh, wow.
And even in like the best deck that could utilize Jar of Greed is not playing Jar of Greed. There's another card called Reckless Greed that says skip your next draw phase, draw 2 cards. And you can like chain the Reckless Greeds and you can draw 6 cards, but you only the skipping your next draw step does not stack on those cards. So you would just play that instead if you wanted that effect. But normal trap cards right now are much better than Jar of Greed. Jar of Greed is the correct answer to that is used to be good, long time ago, but is no longer good.
Wow, that's wild. A card that replaces itself is not playable even by today's standards.
Yes.
Just too fast. Yu-Gi-Oh's too strong.
The cards that do replace themselves are good, and that card is Upstart Goblin. That says, it's a normal spell that says, draw a card, your opponent gains 1,000 life points. That's all the card says.
Yeah, have as much life as you want. I'm just going to combo off anyway.
And that card was limited to 1 at one point. It might have been banned, I'm not sure. It was limited to 1 at one point, and then they brought it back off the most recent ban list to 3, and now people still aren't even playing that card for other reasons that I'm not going to go into. But it's too complicated to say right now why people aren't playing 3 copies of that card. But it is a much faster version of Jar of Greed, but it's not even played.
Gotcha.
So, good things do come in small packages, as you said. There were really, really short-worded cards that were busted and banned, but also ones that maybe aren't as good.
This could have been even shorter. It could just say draw card.
It could say draw card. But in Magic, it would say target player draws 1 card, or like add more words on it, but...
right.
Yeah, draw 1 card is probably the shortest you can get on a trap card. If there's a trap card that has a shorter amount of text than draw 1 card, let me know what it is. But maybe next time in the next video, I will show you 3 different archetypes, and then you have to try to read the cards in the archetype and see which archetype was good right now. Good in the past, but not good anymore, and never been good. That would be a cool video. Because I mean,
that's right. If you want to see that video happen, you're going to like and comment on this one. You hear me?
Listen, I didn't say it. Nikachu said it, but do it anyway. All right, we'll see you in the next one. Thank you for hanging out. Leave a comment on what archetypes you'd like to see, maybe what cards you'd like Nikachu go over, maybe in the next time. And if you liked it, click that like button. I'll see you in the next one. And as always, peace.